we can talk about the sniper challenge and the Altus match.
All right, everybody. Jose Gardner here with Long Range Tactics. And joining us tonight, Marco, one of our reviewers, and old JD himself gracing us with his presence. So we're just going to go after it. What we did last week, first thing we asked was what's in the cup. JD, since you're new, you get to go first. Did you bring a beverage for the night?
I brought tea.
Well, no, that looked like it. What's the design on the cup, though?
Oh, what's the design on the cup? It's a Starbucks coffee mug.
I'm ashamed. Guy, what's in the cup?
It was short notice.
The same thing as last week, the small batch bourbon that I got from the Bourbon Exchange.
Oh, boy. Also, I'm figuring out that on YouTube we get closed captioning apparently, which I'm sure it probably loves my southern accent. I'm going to have to figure out how to turn that off. Not on Facebook. If you're watching this on Facebook and the closed caption is bothering you, I apologize. This is a learning experience, so we're going to figure out how to turn that off down the road. So in mine is just pineapple and mango juice, but I love this cup. It's like from a hole-in-the-wall bar in Nebraska. So that's what I'm going with tonight.
Pineapple and mango juice?
Bruh, the brown comes out in me. Citrus, anything. Let me have it.
Yeah,
but
but like
what? You think he's drinking too, so that's nice. Everyone's like, man, you can really put those down.
But what's mixed with the pineapple and mango?
No, I thought about it, but it was a long weekend, and I really.
Yeah, you're recuperating with a drink on a Tuesday night.
No, that's all right. That's all right. All right, well, that's what was in the cup. So we're gonna see what kind of rabbit hole shooting line we can go into tonight. So I guess we'll start off same way last week with some of our, let's say, weekend shooting endeavors. We just found out from JD that his weekend shooting endeavors were rather minimal thanks to some homework, so that's fun. Do you want to be shooting though, or did you prefer what you were doing?
Oh, no, definitely wanted to be shooting actually, but following the weekend, I've been working on some subsonic stuff with a few guys. We got some 1-in-6 twist barrels in, so we're playing with 300 blackout with a 1-in-6 twist starting yesterday. So it's interesting to see how that develops. We're looking at hopefully doing some 400 to 600 meter engagements with that, just to see how practical it is and what we can get done with accuracy. So that's my weekend into week shooting endeavor that I've started.
Very well. Well, for me, I was up at the Coleman Creek Training Center. Did I say that right? I feel like I never say that right. RO and the Vortex team sniper challenge, which was super cool. For some of y'all that don't know, there's a couple of matches that happen this time of year. Mammoth, Vortex. I hear there's one coming up in Texas where guys not only do, I think it was 14 stages this weekend shooting. I think the closest rifle shots were all the way down to 100 yards out to about 980, and then a ton of pistols involved and different challenges in between, but they also ruck. So there's a division called the Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol. The guys literally get out of their cars on Friday morning with everything they're going to need through Sunday, clothes, tent, food, everything, and typically cover about 30 miles throughout the weekend. Set pace too. They actually fail out of the match if they walk a little slower than that, or walk any slower than that pace. So it's definitely a challenge. You could kind of tell them later in the day, Saturday and Sunday, some of the guys were getting a little, the mental game wasn't quite there where they were wearing down. So it's kind of interesting to see that. Definitely want to go shoot that next weekend. But then there was a couple teams that just absolutely smoked it. So it was really interesting to see how guys ran their gear and stuff. And Joe Burdick was the match director. Vortex Optics was the main sponsor, and they did a tremendous job up there. And so that was pretty cool to sit there and hang out. So, Guy, why don't you tell us about your weekends?
So my weekend was also filled with homework. I'm taking a lit class right now. So Saturday I did my paper so that Sunday I could just go shoot and not worry about turning a paper in super late on Sunday night. But Sunday we had the Oh man, this was the February NRL 22 match at Alta Shooting Solutions in Baker, Florida. I'm the match director for those. So Saturday, after I got done with my paper, I ran out there and got as much done as I could, painting targets and getting everything set up as much as I could. I got there like 6 a.m. on Sunday, finished setting everything out, and then saved your brief and got rolling with it. And we had 25 shooters. We had a few brand new shooters, a couple of females, a couple of lady shooters, which was awesome. Love seeing them out. We had 2 young guns competing, which was awesome. Love to get the young guys out there as well. And then did pretty good. This is the first time we've had like some significant wind. We actually had a storm rolling in. Last month we shot in the rain with no wind, and this weekend we shot in the wind with no rain. So we're shooting probably 10 to 18 mile an hour winds most of the day in the field stages with the 22. So some definite multiple round engagements where people were not having a good time. I put some targets at like 80 yards, some like 2.5-inch targets at 80. And then the next target was at 200, hit to move on. So that 200-yard target with a 22 and 50 mile an hour wind was giving some people some trouble. I actually used my mulligan on that stage and went from a 3 to a 9. So I wish I would have had more mulligans is all I can say, because the day was rough. I was a point and a half, or I was 2 impacts from winning the match. Joe, you cut out. Jose, you cut out. I can't hear you.
I was asking you how the mulligans work at your match.
Oh, okay. So our mulligans work $5 a mulligan. You get 1 for the match. So that way people aren't buying 10 mulligans and reshooting every stage. They get 1 mulligan, costs $5, and the proceeds go towards the expenses of our finale. So our finale was held in July last year because of the whole crazy COVID thing that was going on. And then this year, our finale is actually April 25th. So it's coming up within 2 months. And something that the club expressed, the core group of shooters that we get out there, which is like 15 of us, is they wanted some food and they wanted t-shirts. So we just started selling mulligan chips for $5 to help offset that cost. That way we don't have to raise the price of the actual admission ticket for the match, which our finale last year was amazing. Voodoo Gunworks is our primary sponsor for the entire series. So they put a Voodoo on the table, and the winner of the entire series gets the Voodoo. So we got another one this year, and we're working with some other companies to finish out that rifle. Timney Triggers stepped up, Foundation Stocks, ATS Tuners, Hub City Outdoors, Vortex. We got all kinds of sponsors for this finale match this year. So our mulligans work like that to help offset some of the costs, like sending out steel plates to get buffed and laser engraved and everything else like that for trophies. So that's what the money from the mulligans go to. And if you use your mulligan and you do worse, your mulligan score goes in on the score sheet. So it sucks to suck.
That
I've
is
had that
definitely
bite in the ass once.
Yeah.
that's the game, ain't it? I was actually at a match one time, and this wasn't even mulligan. I had like something go wrong in the state. Like a target went down right before my last shot or something. I'm trying to remember. For some reason, it was questionable whether I got to reshoot it or not. And I looked at the shooter beside me who was in the next squad over. I was like, what do you think? Because he was the one who was kind of like making a big deal. And I was like, you want me to reshoot it or you don't want me to reshoot it? I was like, you want me to reshoot it? It's probably a bad idea on your part. And my score went up and the guy still beat me and I took second. So that was pretty sad. Sometimes it'll get you.
We have a question in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to totally. Is this addressed to you?
I don't know, but somebody does drive a Honda Ridgeline that shoots our match, and he was my kryptonite. He was my nemesis for a little while. Not Jay specifically, but there is a gentleman that comes out of Panama City, he's got like a 10-pound brain. He's an engineer out there and does all kinds of fancy physics stuff. And dude can shoot. David can shoot. He was shooting base class with us last year and just destroyed me every opportunity. Just humble, go out there and just squeeze the trigger. I'm doing my thing and just couldn't beat him for a while. And then I finally got him. It took me till this year to finally beat him. But yeah, so
I think with the Honda Ridgeline, I'd just treat it like the military. Just don't ask, don't tell. So
they rescinded that.
Oh, well.
You can do whatever you want these days.
So I love it. This is where we start venturing down rabbit holes. I don't know who asked this question. If you're still listening, we're going to need some, let's say, context for your question. But for when reloading for competitions, how far off the lands are you all reloading? Which is funny because I have some other questions that some people put in the comments earlier today about reloading. So let's kick it off here. So since he hasn't given us what caliber or anything he's shooting, Jay, do you reload for your match gun?
No, I'm thinking about getting into it, but I've never really committed. I can talk a little bit about some other aspects of reloading though that are pretty interesting. But yeah, it'll apply to a different caliber. It doesn't really apply to, it kind of applies to lands and grooves, but it's not really kind of, I think, what this guy's looking for. So I don't know. We can get into that right now, or we can get into go over or something like that. You might have a better answer.
We'll definitely circle back to that. Guy, with your crazy reloading process, where does it land you off the lands?
I'm 40,000 off the lands. I started at 10 and just did 10,000 off the lands and then just jumped it by tens and found what grouped the best and then played with the seating depth a little bit and ended up at 40,000 off. So that's where my particular setup in 223 likes it. So that's where I've been setting them all too.
All right. I think I am, for most of my match rifles, I am at .02 mostly, which is weird because I shoot like 3 different brands of bullets and it just seems to have worked for all of them. And maybe it's just because I probably can't shoot enough to squeeze out the difference that it can make, but that's been, and it's worked pretty well. Other than I've got both my hunting rifles really shoot about as good as my match rifles do. And I seat them both at mag length and they're 6.5 PRCs. And I think I measured it one time. It was like 0.110 or something like that, like something pretty far off, which if you go down the rabbit hole of Scott Satterley, maybe we could have him come talk to us one day. But
that's basically what I was thinking I was trying to do, but
the bigger jump, some people are starting to make a trend for a variety of reasons. So kind of cool. JD says it's the 338 Lapua. Does that change your answer? Is there any input you want to give there?
No, I mean, my comment's going to be more about the 6 mils and stuff like that. So,
Well, let's go down the rabbit hole. I'll circle back to the question we had earlier today. Go down the rabbit hole.
All right. So, one of the guys I work with, he's a very, very heavy reloader. He's done a lot really in the military world with shooting. He's the guy who actually was the proponent for the military changing to 6.5 and pushed up all the justification papers and got that thing switched out. So he's why we have 6.5 Creedmoor coming in. Anyways, though, so he's a big 6 mil shooter and a gas gun. And what he'll do is he'll start out with a VLD bullet. Then he'll go to like a Berger AR hybrid. Then I believe a Hornady hollow point boat tail match. And then a Sierra Match King. And by loading those bullets in that sequence, so from the VLDs all the way to the Sierra Match Kings in that order, you get the ogive pushing further and further forward. So as the VLDs eat up his throat and push his lands out, he'll reload to an AR hybrid, which seats a little bit further into the lands and grooves. Then with the Hornady hollow point boat tails, that ogive is a little bit further forward again. And then once again with the Sierras, it's further forward more. So he's been able to keep, I think, his 6 mil from JP under a half minute, and it has about 5,500 rounds on it. So he's been able to extend barrel life by loading different bullets because he can match the ogive of that bullet, still keeping it mag length to where his lands and his grooves are, maintaining his accuracy.
That's interesting.
So basically, he's chasing his throat by keeping his OAL the same and just getting a longer O-drive bullet, which means he's probably along the way, though, he's in theory giving up BC every time he changes bullets by a little bit.
He's giving up a little bit of BC, but he's maintaining the accuracy. So it's not giving up the BC to the extent that it's changing like his wind efficiency, like dropping it down by a mile an hour or anything like that. It's dropping it just by a little bit. And but the big thing is he's able to maintain that accuracy, which is, you know, kind of what you want. If you can maintain that accuracy and know where that bullet's going to go, it's easy to go from like a 6 mile an hour gun to a 5 mile an hour gun and just hold a little bit more for wind.
So when he's changing the bullet, is he also changing the powder to keep the speed? Like,
yeah, he has different loads. Yeah,
okay.
He has different loads for each bullet. So he has like, hey, this is my 6 mil, I'm running VLDs. This is my powder. He has everything charted out. Then when he switches over to AR hybrids, it's his new powder load that he drops in there. And same thing all the way down. He's able to maintain fairly decent muzzle velocity. I don't think he's lost, he varies by more than 25 or 50 feet per second all the way through those 4 bullets.
That's impressive.
I would have never even thought to do something like that. But the moment you start talking, I was like, oh, I know where this is going, but it would never have crossed my mind.
No, he said that too, and everyone just looked at each other, and it's like, so simple. So, just by changing bullets and chasing lands and grooves, you can up your barrel count or up your barrel life to 5,000 to 6,000 rounds on a 6 mil.
I would wonder what
in these times you need it.
Well, I'd wonder at what round count he would change too, though, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I've only actually burned out one barrel. It's the only barrel I've ever anyways, I've been through a lot of barrels, but I only actually burned one out, and I burned out about 2,700 rounds. And I just went and redid the load work, and I didn't I did shoot it some more, but not enough to like let it drop off again. But I wonder if at some point, like, you know, let's say he went 1,500, 1,800 rounds with the first bullet, and then he load worked with the second bullet, right? Like when he found that node, you know, he's not going to get a whole barrel's worth out of that bullet, but did he extend the amount of time that it would take to show, let's say, accuracy issues? And I wonder if he just figured out how to reset the button every time. But like at the end of the day, he's still doing load work, right? Which is something in theory you could do just after your barrel. Like your barrel doesn't just quit shooting like tomorrow. It just doesn't quit shooting all of a sudden, right? It just, something happens in there, you get, you know, the firecracking or whatever it rose, and then it just resets your node basically, right? So it's interesting. I've heard of that.
So what he was saying, he doesn't chase accuracy. You're going to lose muzzle velocity before you chase accuracy. The reason, what happens if you have a known load and a known muzzle velocity, if you see a drop of it suddenly between 50 and 80 feet per second, that's where your barrel is shot out. So he's tracking his elevation. Once he sees that drop, he knows his barrel is shot out and still maintaining accuracy. Because what's happening is as the bullet leaves the case, it hasn't engaged in the lands and the grooves. So gas escapes a little bit around it because it hasn't sealed. And that's where you get that muzzle velocity loss. So that's the instant indicator that your barrel is shot out, even though it still maintains accuracy. It's a drop in muzzle velocity. So he's chasing muzzle velocity, not accuracy.
Does he lose the muzzle velocity throughout that process of 5,500 rounds?
Yeah, so essentially he'll shoot VLDs until he sees that 50 to 80 feet per second drop. Then he'll go to air hybrids, and the same thing. He has the known load, known muzzle velocity. Once he sees it drop, he goes to the Hornadies, and then same thing to Sierras. So he knows whenever he sees it.
What's the round count between having to change bullets?
I'm not sure. I know for his first one, it was about 2,000 rounds, I think, because he's running a gas gun, so he's running it a little bit hotter and a little bit. He's heating up the chamber a little bit more. I'm not sure where his other round counts were. I know he's sitting right at about 5,500 though on his current JP, so that's the method he's been using. I'll hit him up tomorrow though. I'll ask him about that actually, because
that'd be interesting to see if he goes 2,000 and then is it like 500 or another 1,000 that he does it, or like what's the?
I feel like you could actually do that with the barrels on most of our bolt guns. You'd lose the accuracy, but you could just reset the load. I think a lot of people, when they lose that 80 feet per second, they're like, because they know they'll end up chasing it. It isn't like they're going to go that many rounds again before they chase it again and be, you go 2,500 rounds first time, then you go 1,000 rounds before it happens again, and blah blah. But
yeah,
I think people could. I say all that to say I think your buddy's right, and I do believe we throw away barrels prematurely. But once again, that's anecdotal evidence on my part. So
I'm active duty. I don't get paid enough to throw out barrels.
no, I know. Yeah, you mean both, right?
No, we're not going to have that conversation. We're gonna. We got another question here, Hi guys. I was told by a friend that if I take the muzzle brake off, the bullet will have increased speeds because there's no more brake on it. JD, you want that one? I don't know if this is just because your buddy, for some reason, is like thinking like a brake, like the brakes on
this one. Hey, yeah, I know. Hey, Fetchner. So I'm not really sure what your friend is referring to. So the concept of a brake is that as gases come out of your barrel, the gases actually push against the brake as they exit to the sides, and that actually pulls recoil from your shoulder. So those gases are still trapped behind the bullet. They're not going to increase the speed of the bullet. To increase the speed of your bullet, you'd have to have longer barrel length or powder that burns maybe a little bit hotter and faster. So the muzzle brake isn't really a component of your muzzle velocity. If you're attaching a suppressor to that muzzle brake, you'll probably see a little bit of an increase in muzzle velocity because there's still burning inside the can of any unburnt powder that's in the barrel. It kind of comes out with the bullet. But the function of the muzzle brake isn't something that's going to affect, or isn't something that's going to. Guy,
yeah,
Jose, you have any inputs for that?
Yeah, I would just say, so I guess gotta keeping things the same, right? Let's say I just
I haven't seen anything like that before. Or comment with that.
Can y'all hear me? Am I good?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say I take my 6.5 PRC and it's 26-inch barrel. Whether there's a muzzle brake on it or not, you're getting that 26 inches or 25 3/4 inches of muzzle burn from the time your bullet seals into the chamber to the time it is fully disengaged. What's the term? The crown of your barrel, JD, right? So like once it's exited the barrel and it's no longer touching any metal in your barrel, theoretically, if there was a brake on it, it is now inside the internal dimension of your brake, but it's not touching anything. But by the time the gases are actually, let's say, creating any effect on your muzzle brake to create that impulse, to reduce that recoil impulse, that bullet's gone. There's nothing changing about it. So like JD said, with suppressor and stuff, you do run into like some pressure changes and you might pick up velocity. But frankly, with a muzzle brake, without a muzzle brake, in my mind, it does 0 to, unless somebody knows something I don't, it would do 0 to specifically your bullet speed, your muzzle velocity on your.
The only thing taking off a brake would do, like brake versus no brake, would be point of impact.
Yeah, it could change your barrel harmonics, but it isn't going to change your speed. So good question, though. That is a great question. Some people, that's a great question. Scrolling down through here, going back to your question, JD, has asked, when your buddy switches to the new bullet, does the muzzle velocity go back up, or is it that in my mind, he's asking, is it because he knows that he can get right back to that muzzle velocity, or is the question, is he having to redo load work and just picking a new node?
No, great question. So the muzzle velocity is actually coming back up to generally what it was. It's going to be off a little bit because it's a different bullet, technically the load is a little bit different, but it's not really going to be something that's noticeable when it comes to elevation or anything like that, or too noticeable. He might be off by 0.2, 0.3 mils, maybe, between 800 and 1,000 being pushed forward. So now it's sealing up with those lands and those grooves and capturing all that burnt powder from the cartridge. Whereas before, with ogive that's backed further, like a VLD, you have gas escaping around the bullet as the bullet's sealing, rather than the bullet seals and then the gas pushes it. So yes, it goes back to pretty much original muzzle velocity, for lack of better words.
Interesting. I guess I'm highly surprised. I guess I'm not that surprised. Nothing in the shooting world really surprises me anymore, but I'm surprised that all 4 of those bullets would actually be about the same speed from a node perspective. You know what I mean? Like that one barrel with like all 4 of those bullets at the same speed. You know what I mean? Like that's intriguing to me. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same speed. There are differences, but when it comes to performance, it's not going to be a muzzle velocity that's going to be noticeably slow, or where, hey, oh man, now I have to hold another, mil at 800 meters or anything like that. Like you're going to see those small variances just with, different loads in and of themselves, but it's nothing where now it's like, man, instead of holding, let's say 0.4 for wind, for that wind call at 800 meters, now I have to hold 0.8 or anything like that. He might hold, 0.5 for those less efficient bullets. So while it is a little bit different, it's not something that's going to be practically noticeable, because really your ability to call wind that's going to give you a 0.4 to a 0.5 at 800 meters or those further distances is, let's be realistic. There are not a lot of people that can call wind that accurately, because that's like less than half a mile an hour variance. So yeah, performance wise, you're going to see roughly the same or pretty much the same. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Interesting. Well, if anyone has any other questions on that topic, we'll definitely circle back around. But here's one.
I'd love to circle back to that.
Yeah. Okay. Deal. Here's one, and I still owe Miles an answer on some powder drops, so we'll come back down to that too. But I think I'm still going to direct this one at JD, and see what he says. How much does heavy rain mess with my trajectory at long range?
Hey, do you know what range are you talking about? Can you throw something in there for us so I can kind of quantify that a little bit better?
I'm going to answer for him. Let's just say 1,000 yards.
1,000 yards. So let's say that we are shooting 1,000 yards in heavy rain. So a lot of us have migrated to the more efficient 6 mils and 6.5s and everything like that. So with a 6 mil and a 6.5 and a lot of bullets really at 1,000 meters, when you look at the profile in a Kestrel or something like that, if you're working with applied ballistics, if you look at the muzzle velocity, you're still supersonic. So when you're supersonic, you essentially have a shock wave that's around your bullet that's parting the rain. So that shock wave is pushing the raindrops away from the bullet. It's not like you're getting little splotches of rain on your bullets as they're going through the air or anything like that.
So it's like the Matrix, where all the bullet shock waves coming in?
Yeah, that's a great way to actually think about it. And you see that shock wave from the Matrix, except it's parting the air. So that bullet really isn't being affected by the rain. Really, the biggest thing you're going to see from the rain is, one, you're going to have lack of visibility. But it is actually one of the best ways to judge wind if you have rain out there. So a lot of people don't like shooting in rain, but you see exactly what the wind's doing all the way down, and it's a great way to track a wind call, like Tyler just mentioned.
Well, Tyler is a genius. We love Tyler. Tyler's my favorite short-bearded man in the world. So fair question though, if we dig a little deeper into what you just said, that shock wave is pushing the bullets out of the way, but in theory, is that creating any more drag because it's soaking up energy, or it's just, is it probably an answer yes from a theoretical physics standpoint, but it's negligible for anything you'd ever notice? Or how do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, and that's a good thing to dive into. You know, always knowing the why and how things function. You know, it's good for everyone to know, because now we can know where to ignore things. So, you know, you look at a raindrop, and you know, what's the mass of a raindrop compared to, you know, 107 grain? Let's go light with a 6 mil, 107 grain 6 mil, and then how much energy does that 6 mil have? You know, if you look at the energy needed to drop that bullet or push that bullet off an impact, you know, if the 6 mil still has, let's say, 700 foot-pounds of energy at 1,000 meters, you need a fairly sizable amount of energy for that bullet, or substance for that bullet, to drop. And if you have a raindrop, you know, you might be able to do it with a lot of them. You know, like if you shoot through a gallon of water, obviously it's going to deform your bullet and make it do something weird. And that's like a solid mass of water. So rain, it's not really going to affect it as much from what we've seen as some people think. Kind of two things with that. One, you're bringing in your visibility, so you don't have that distance that puts the bullet out there where it could be affected by the rain. But then two, you need a substantial amount of energy to redirect that bullet with its trajectory. So just starting to dive into physics on that. Like it probably could have an effect, but you're looking at, you know, your effect on Coriolis is probably going to be more than your rain effect. So
that's great.
That's how Todd or Brian comes out with the wind or the rain function on the Kestrel. We like to joke about.
Well, at the end of the day, though, right? I mean, if it is raining, though, I mean, you know, let's say it's already cold or whatever. It's, you know, at Coleman Creek that it's 40 degrees and pouring down rain, rather than earlier in the day it was 40 degrees and not pouring down rain. The reality of it is your air density probably did get thicker, right? I mean, if nothing else, your humidity went up, which will affect. So it isn't that you're accounting for it, because at the end of the day, you're not in your mind measuring the moisture anyways. But if you whip your Kestrel back out and recollect atmospherics, you know, 40 degrees with no rain versus 40 degrees pouring down rain an hour later, you probably did lose something, but not anything that you really had to account for, other than making sure you recaptured your weather, right? So great question. I love that. I love that question, Dino. I don't even know who you are, but that was awesome. So here's a great, let's say, offshoot of this. Let me find it. Who asked it? Because I really want you to. Where's it at?
Walker.
Now, what about shooting 22 LR in the rain?
Because now the majority of us are shooting subsonic.
Give me the nitty gritty, JD.
I don't shoot much 22. I mean, but it goes to say that the rain's going to have more effect with the 22 than it is with a larger caliber center fire bullet, just because you're shooting a lighter bullet, you're shooting it slower, and now because you don't have that shock wave, you're going to have bullets potentially hitting those raindrops, or I should say, really, yeah, it's the bullets. It's not the raindrops hitting the bullet. It's the bullet hitting the raindrop. If you think about it in bullet time, fast the bullet's moving, the raindrops really aren't that. I couldn't really tell you what it is, though. I'll see if we can get a rain.
Well, I'll go out and shoot this week, because it's been nothing but pour down rain yesterday and today. Great. So, I mean, we shot the January match for NRL 22. It was pouring down rain. And I don't want to say it was significantly lower, but I think that maybe I didn't update my atmospherics in my Kestrel, or it was the rain or whatnot, but it seemed that everybody was hitting a little bit lower that in the rain. And I think I'm no Mythbusters, but I'd have to assume that it's going to have a bigger effect on a 22. I mean, it's a non-aerodynamic bullet. It's only 40 grains, and it's going, you know, mine this weekend was going 1077. So well below. And that's straight out of the muzzle. As it gets farther away at 200, it's obviously losing a lot more velocity. You're basically mortaring those things in there at that point.
So we're going to take a couple of the oddball comments here first. So now I can't use the ranks as an excuse. That's a lie. You can use anything as an excuse if you try hard enough. So we're going to let that one be. Somebody did ask if this is also a podcast. I'm going to address that real quick, especially for some people new. A lot of people are going to be watching this off the Long Range Tactics Facebook group. We're just growing there. Make sure if you have friends you want to invite over to our group. Obviously, we try to share good information and weed out the bad, along with all those crazy spammers that keep trying to sell, and doesn't actually exist. So we try to keep the group good. But no, to answer your question, this is not a podcast. This is just kind of something we do every 2 weeks. We get on here and we hope that somebody has an awesome question like that leads us down a rabbit hole. We can share a good amount of information and have some fun along the way. So great question. We're going to go on to one of the next questions brought up. If I can find it, man, a lot of comments here. I'm going to get real good at this technology thing here in a second. Okay, so how much does temperature affect feet per second? I'm looking to get a Leopold CDS, which I assume is those, if I remember right, isn't that just the custom turrets or whatever, custom drop system or whatever? It seems they're pretty limited due to temperature and altitude. I'll give my thoughts on it first, I guess, and then if some of the rest of you want to jump in. So the first question is, or my first question for you would be, are you shooting factory ammo or reloads? Because if you reload, then you have the, let's say, the ability to go pick the more temperature stable, because that's what's going to, some powders will do way big swings, and 90 degrees versus 50 degrees, and some are more consistent. I don't think any of them are perfect, unless somebody on here disagrees with me. But nonetheless, you can get some that are more consistent than others, and I think also it has to do with the distance you're shooting, right? So a lot of times, guys who are shooting custom turrets, custom made turrets like that, are going to be doing it for hunting, and you may not even be stretching that far, right? So for me, right on my 6.5 PRC, 600 in for 2,000 to 3,000 DA, there's really not enough difference to be able to tell. So a lot of times, when I make my drop charts for hunting season, I go out and just kind of pick. I know, where I'll be hunting and about what those DAs are going to be and whatnot. I make a chart for kind of in the middle, and I know kind of what my tolerances are all the way out to 600 and beyond that. I always have my Kestrel in my backpack anyways, but for those, let's say, moderate hunting distances, 500 in, maybe 600 in, you're not going to see enough difference to matter. And so you pick the right, but if you get a CDS made for Alabama in the wintertime and then you go hunt, first rifle out in the mountains of Colorado, it won't work for that, right? You do got to get one made for the weather conditions you're going to be shooting in. For it is a little bit more limited for, let's say, the competition world, as you kind of shoot year round in different locations and maybe need a slight level of precision or definitely more extended. For hunting purposes, I'd say figure out what the conditions are you'll be hunting in, and usually they'll work pretty good for you. Your thoughts, guys?
I don't have any experience with CDSs, so I can't really speak to it much, but I do know on the 22 side that temperature affects the feet per second. If we're doing Cold War stuff first thing in the morning and we're checking our dope or checking our zero and then getting our feet per second for the day, if I'm getting 1077 in the afternoon, it's 40 degrees. If it heats up to 75, 80 degrees and I was to recheck my velocity, it's going to have sped up on something as small as a 22. So I've tracked it. I know what my morning temp is, and I know what a good afternoon temp is on the velocity of the lot of ammo that I have. And I'll just readjust my Kestrel real quick for it if it gets to be a bright, sunny day.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so this kind of goes into like if you have a Kestrel muzzle velocity temp tables. I can touch on that in a moment. So Josh, that's a solid question. So we deal with this when it comes to like filling out dope cards. We run dope cards pretty exclusively, just because it takes electronics out of it, and it's actually quicker depending on what you're doing. The one thing you can do with your CDS is kind of look at when you're shooting. You know, like Jose said, you know, powder burn rate is going to be pretty big, and that's kind of one of the things that Guy's seeing there, and that's due to the temperature changing the effects of the powder. So if you know generally a high end and a low end of the climates you're shooting in, and you can quantify it in like density altitude, which I would do. You could do temperature if you wanted to, or density altitude. Then see kind of how far you're shooting out to. See what the scatter is or the spread is between your high end and your low end kind of muzzle velocities that you're getting. And you can get a CDS made for right in the middle, and then you just know your offsets high or low if it comes to those further shots. And that's a pretty simple way of doing it, where it's not that it's limited. It'll just have a nuance that you need to know how to use, which isn't going to make you any less effective. It's just kind of an extra step when you check your weather. Hey, what's the temperature? What's going on? Okay, maybe you're shooting at 600 meters. You know you're going to be 2 minutes off, so 12 inches off at 600 meters. You know, okay, I need to hold high or low those 12 minutes, or those 12 inches, excuse me, or those 2 minutes, and you can still make that custom dial system or the custom drop system work pretty well, where instead of dialing straight up to 6, you dial up to 6, and maybe you drop it back 1 click or 2 clicks or however many clicks it is to get you to that new elevation that you need.
Yeah, it's all about just being familiar with the tool you have, you know, in front of you. That's great. Good stuff. There was another one that I saw. So we got Is Your Six covered here, hanging out with us on from YouTube. A guy I shot with a couple weeks ago out in Tennessee has a cool channel. So yes, I do remember freezing in Tennessee. That was the match, guys, that Solinsky paid dearly for his oversized trophy with the price of a totaled car. So,
but man, that trophy looks gangster.
Yeah, it's true. Sure does.
I got a piece of balsa wood.
Sorry, I was trying to make sure we get to these guys. What's funny is I had something came up while you were talking, JD, and now I'm blanking on it. So that sucks because, I had this oh, yes, $1 million idea. Guys, you got to hear me out on this. Temperature stability, right?
Some tables?
No. Forget the tables. Forget any sort of dope. You make a bullet heater that keeps your bullets in your backpack at 60 degrees, no matter what. You're hunting 10 degrees, negative weather out in Colorado, or you're sitting in frickin' Florida, 110 degree heat. Temperature controlled bullet holders. That's going to be the new $1 million idea. As much money as PRS guys spend, I'm telling you, that one's going to sell. It's going to sell.
I just put my bullets in one of those tough cases and put a hand warmer in it when it's really cold.
No, you just took my $1 million idea. That's not how this goes. Oh, man. Oh, that's funny. Okay. You have separate profiles for temps. Oh, interesting. Here's a good question. I love this because I sadly have done something like this, but not for 22. Do you have separate profiles at different temps for your 22 LR for various degrees? Guy, have you tracked your 22, let's say, detailedly enough that you know how much it's affected when it's 40 degrees versus 110 in Florida?
No, I haven't gone that far. I have definitely seen a pretty good shift in elevation just because I did go to the range one day, when it first in the morning and shot a group and didn't do anything to my gun and then let it continue to heat up. And I continued just to shoot on one large IPSC target at 100 yards just to see how much it would walk up as the day got hotter. It was a super long day. And I went and did other stuff with other guns, but I just wanted to kind of see around and test it. And that's how I figured out that I was getting a rise in my point of impact. And it wasn't anything drastic. I didn't move up the entire target, but I went down there and measured it. And yeah, I was walking up the target as it got hotter. So that's kind of what I did. But I don't have different profiles in my Kestrel based on that. No, I just know that I need to shift temperature or shift my velocity based on what it was. And that's in my data book.
He's always got it handy. Always got it handy.
I mean, this is it's the reloading room, spare bedroom, office, desk. I mean, I got a 22 over here. I got a Macmillan over here. Manners over there. All my stuff over there.
Tyler is making a claim here that every 20 degrees ends up being about a 0.2 shift at 200 yards. I'm assuming that's mils because I do know that Tyler shoots in mils, not to be confused with MOA, for that 0.2 adjustment, which if that's accurate, and I would say it probably is if I'm thinking about what I've experienced, and that kind of tells you that unless you're really starting to get into, let's say, the ELR distances of a 22 LR, if you're talking NRL 22 and anything in, you're probably not going to notice enough difference without it being 100, full 100-degree swing. But that's great info, Tyler.
And he says that is for a 22 long rifle.
Yeah. Oh, Ely match. Oh, that's right. He went to the dark side and went away from the capstone made bullets and decided to go Ely. I won't hold him against it for too long, but that's all right.
So circling to be wrong.
Well, Tyler beats me with that Ely, so it's fine. So circling back to some questions we had, or a question that was raised before the show even started. Powder drops, like powder dispensers. So if I scoot, I can't tell how to scoot. You can see my two behind me. So I've got the A&D FX 120i, is that what's called, with the auto trickler and auto dispenser. And then I actually also have the Frankfurt Arsenal. I don't even remember what they call that thing, but it's like basically their version of the RCBS Matchmaster. And is that what you have back there? I can't see.
I got the RBCS, the 1500, and then I've got the light version as well.
Nice. So the question was really just to kind of discuss them. And when people talk about this, I really think it just comes down to just what's your cost, or how intensely do you want to justify your cost? And what I mean by that is there's guys out there that are only going to load 200 hunt rounds a year, but they like an easy button, and that, the $1,000 A&D is worth it to them. And there's guys that shoot 6,000 rounds a year and don't mind, taking the time, or aren't looking for essentially the granularity of the A&D. Because the A&D will go down to about 0.02 grains of accuracy, where the Frankfurt I have there, or guys, our CBSs go to 0.1 grain of accuracy. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you find a good node for your rifle, that 0.1 is plenty. I actually didn't get the A&D for the accuracy as much as I just did the speed. I mean, it runs pretty dang fast, and it's
what are you getting per charge? Like how fast do you get like one charge of powder?
I'll be honest, I haven't.
I know, because I know the manual says about like 19 to 20 seconds is where it wants to be.
It's way faster than that. Faster than that. I bet it's closer to like 12, maybe 10 when it drops right. Because something I've also noticed is there's actually a sweet spot, and I haven't messed necessarily much with the drop speed, because you can change the trickle speed, like how fast down versus speeds up. But I've actually found that when the drop is too close, so like let's say my target's 30.1, if I'm dropping at about 30, it actually goes slower than if I drop at like 29.6, because at 29.6, then it goes through its proper step down, where if I drop at 30, then it automatically goes into the slowest mode to trickle that last tenth of the grain. And it will actually drop faster if I back it off about 3/10. And there's some nuances with it, and you can
Tyler just said he's dropping his in 8 seconds.
Yeah, I believe that. Like I said, it's pretty dang fast. It's pretty awesome.
So I'm reloading and I'm using the 1500 for my 308 and then the new Chargemaster Lite for my 223, which is I'm shooting production this year, so that's what I'm running. And the 1500 is about 35 seconds ish. It's got a much slower trickle. The new Chargemaster Lite definitely has a faster trickle, which is nice. It gets closer because I'm running 24.2 and it stops at like 23.8 and then trickles the rest, but it trickles pretty fast, which is nice. But I'm getting like 25 to 28 seconds per powder drop. So like reloading 120 rounds. I haven't done it like steady. I have to break it up because, kids. And I like sleep, so I'm not staying up till midnight to reload. But during dinner or whatever, after dinner, I'll hop in here real quick before the kids get their bath and reload and, get 20, 30 rounds, 20, 30, 40 rounds done in a short amount of time. And that's basically how I got to get my powder and bullet seating done. But yeah, it's the FX for the speed is, I think, worth the money. What's your time worth?
Yeah, but also for me, it's actually what's your effort worth, because I'm actually pretty dang lazy. And Justin Heyer, I really wish he was on here to kind of discuss this. He did finally go over to the FX 120 as well, but me and him used to have some pretty good discussions about how he used to just do literally a balance beam with the little hand trickle. And he said, he would get more accurate than say your Chargemaster or whatever. He could do it as fast, but what I used to argue with him is that he has to work a lot harder to do that. And to me, that makes me want to be at the bench less. So part of that is right. Like the nicer it is, the more I'm willing to do it, because I'm kind of lazy. So, I like that, but, so Wayne Ulrich comments, A&D is awesome. Per charge is about 10 seconds per N140. I load N140 in my 223s and in my BR base and cap cartridges and the GTs, and I think that's about what I'm getting as well. So I will say this though, this will throw. There's going to be people that are going to say that you should be way more OCD than this. You notice I got these two together, right? And if I scroll way over, there's a different table here. So this is like a slat, this is two different bench tops. So now my press no longer shakes these, and I'm telling you, I've tested that Frankfurt, and it is actually pretty spot on, both in like, if this says 30, this says 30. And, it's pretty consistent. It's definitely that plus or minus 0.1. And if I'm just reloading 223 or I'm reloading for prairie dog shooting or whatever, I'll load both at the same time, which I know is totally, oh my God, that's not consistent, two scales or whatever. But it's, when you find the right node, the right load that gets you the right node in your gun, that node's pretty forgiving. And I can load a lot real fast on that progressive with, weighed out charges. So it works for me. But
see, and I'll say, long as you use the same calibration weights, it shouldn't matter if you're using two scales, in my opinion.
Well, the A&D doesn't come with calibration weights anyways, right? So I actually just use the calibration weights off of the Frankfurt.
Exactly.
It works, right? Yeah. So, all right. So we always promise people an hour, and I love to be on time with anything I do. So we got about 4 minutes left here. So JD, you get to go first. And if you take the whole 6 minutes, it's fine, but you have to leave people with your nuggets of wisdom on shooting for the week. One nugget of wisdom for shooting.
Oh man. Nuggets wisdom for shooting for the week. All right. So my nugget of wisdom for shooting for the week. So I'm getting ready for the Real World Sniper Challenge. Actually, BJ and I are going to go shoot it together in April. And I'm not going to shoot anything long range in preparation for that match. My goal is to shoot paper at 100 meters, and that's it. Positional paper at 100 meters, doing sprints into grouping at 100 meters. I want to do everything at 100 meters for my precision and shooting to get ready for that match.
Why? Because it shines a harsher light on every little mess up in your fundamentals? Because you're not shooting forgiving steel?
Exactly. So I'm not shooting steel where if it rings, everyone's happy. If I shoot outside of that 1 minute pasty that I'll have up there, I'll know it. And it's going to cause me to focus more on my positions, getting in a good position right away, breaking off that one clean shot that hits right where I want it to, rather than, hey, I hit the steel, which could have just been out of pure luck. Saw it flip and saw it ring, so we're all happy. So paper is unforgiving, and I will shoot it at 100 meters.
Have you done the craft challenge?
Craft challenge. I don't know if I'm familiar with that. What is it?
The Chris Wave rifle challenge, where you do it's a 12-round drill where you do prone, sitting, kneeling, standing, and you break position each time, and you go through that, and it's on a target, and you can upload it to his website.
And he tracks data like nationwide, and you create your baseline where the first time it's untimed, and then the next time you time it by 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. It's pretty neat. You should YouTube it, JD. I bet you'd really love it.
No, I'm going to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I did it, and I pulled 2 shots, so I ended up at 4 minutes, but my group size was still like 1.2 something or something cool like that. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. Like, you log in with your email or whatever, and then tracks all the data. He's going to eventually, I've been talking to him personally, and he's going to eventually separate it to where he can do different rifles. So like, I did it with my center fire gun, but I also want to do it with my 22. So
that's fascinating. CRAFT?
KRFT.
Okay.
He'll actually do it at 100 yards with his 22 and with his center fire.
He actually changed it to where it's 50 meters, or it's 50 yards with carbines and with 22s, and it's 100 yard with center fires, like your big guns, your bolt guns.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Huh. Oh, we got more comments. Oh, I don't know what that was. Okay. All right, Guy. And don't be long-winded. You got 2 minutes. Ready to go.
Okay. My nuggets of wisdom was the mental game, and it's going to go back to Wayne's comment about, I don't know if I click it, if it'll show up. No. Mental aspect of having good attitude and not stressing as others are reducing their mental performance. Okay. So just staying focused on a match, right? So like, we're all there to have fun. Like, with this whole NRL 22 series things that we got going on, like, I'm in second place for the series, right? But I'm still out there to have a good time and shoot with my friends. So like, if I have a bad stage, I beat myself up on that bad stage, and then I go to the next stage and it's a clean slate, because it is a clean slate, because it's a new stage, it's a new course of fire, it's new targets, it's new distances. I don't let myself get sucked down the rabbit hole of, oh, I'm doing terrible, I did good on that stage last match, XYZ. Like, remember why you're shooting, because you like it, because you enjoy it, and you're there to have a good time with your friends. That's my 2 cents.
Nice. So I'll round us out here with my last 90 seconds. Watching that Vortex Team Sniper Challenge this weekend, I'll say one thing that it led me to really want to do more practice on is, I think, I'm really used to watching PRS shooters who watch each other shoot all day, and they got plenty of time to make a plan and stuff. And I think we lose a lot of creativity. And I don't want that to be too general of a statement. But watching a whole match that people go in blind and typically tired, you could tell the guys that were, let's say, not stuck in a specific mentality to do things a certain way, and guys were very creative and efficient in how they approach shooting challenges. And so, in my practice regimen moving forward, when I go out to the range, a couple of weekends from now, I definitely want to kind of practice a little bit less sitting back and make a plan, and maybe creating some challenges where I go in and try to approach them blind and kind of get a little bit better and efficient with what I do. So, oh, I see what it is now. I see what you want to do there, Dino J. That's directed at me, guys, but we're going to let that one go, so it's fine. So that being said, we just hit an hour. I want to thank everybody once again for being with us tonight. I hope we dropped some good knowledge on you. It's always good having Jeff here because he can go way deeper down the rabbit hole than some of us can, and I love listening to that and soaking it up. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Make sure that if you're this on one of the mediums or one of our media sites, but not the other, we have all three. So we got Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and our website, longrangetactics.com. Make sure you follow them all. It helps us grow, helps us put out more information. If you think it's good information, then help us spread that. And we'll be back on again here in 2 weeks. As you'll see, JD on tonight, we'll try to keep switching it up, let everybody meet all of the reviewers as we all have different points of view, and we hope you all like it. So if you have any suggestions in the meantime, make sure you comment on this. This post will be up. We'll be on the page for the life until we get kicked off Facebook. So, but no, rewatch it, give us suggestions, and we hope to make these shows better and better. So with that, we thank you for your time. Be safe and get out shooting.